Excellent.
Good to have you there. Thank you so much for being on the show with us today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I mean, I don't know. Some people, like, when you look at rock stars, you go, "Oh my gosh, they were a hit when they were 17, and now they're 20 and they're old hat," right? But that's the exception, I think. Most people do kind of hit their stride when they're older, right?
Well, most people do. The problem is society today. I think responding to two of the most lucrative industries we have, which is software, internet-related stuff on the one hand, and then high-end financial services on the other, that the companies in those fields hire for people who went to elite universities and got stratospheric SAT scores. And that's led everybody to believe that if you're not getting these great test scores and going to an elite university, that somehow you're going to live a second-rate life.
So in the book, are you studying late bloomers and what exactly caused them to finally blossom after so long?
Well, many early bloomers do well, but they're being pushed. They're not, and they eventually burn out. Some early bloomers really have found what they were meant to do in life, and they blossom and keep blossoming. But what really separates people from bloom and keep blooming from those who burn out is the difference between being pulled versus being pushed. Being pulled is what happens when you find, through your own exploration, that intersection of your native gifts, your deepest passions, and your sense of purpose, and you go for it. And when you're there, you feel pulled. You get skills you didn't have. I've seen introverts become great salespeople. I've seen passive people become lions of courage. When you're pushed to somebody else's agenda, you may achieve in the short term, but you'll find a way to self-sabotage after a while.
Oh my gosh, that is so smart. I absolutely think that's true. I mean, look at the boy bands, to stick to music a little bit. Some of those kids they wouldn't have been successful if they hadn't been pushed. So do you think it's a matter of believing in oneself?
I think it's a matter of, no, not entirely, because I think that learning how to deal with self-doubt is one of the things that you'll need to do if you're going to become a bloomer and keep blooming. I use the example of the great football coach Bill Walsh, who told me, he was a great 49ers coach back in the day, and I interviewed him several times, and he said, I can't tell you how many confident people, or he called them confident blowhards, who burn out by the age of 40 and get no better because they believe only in their own confidence rather than in the mastery of their subject. So whether you're a musician or a coach, you eventually, they'll find you out if you're not a master. And maybe that's what some of these boy bands, they find out that they really don't have that kind of talent. They were this year's fashion. But you think about the musicians that stand the test of time, they achieved a mastery, and they were able to adapt to the fashions.
And then there are some parents out there who push their children and don't allow their children the luxury of self-discovery for their own passion.
Yeah, and they protect them from failure. They're helicopter parents. If they're rich, their parents are tempted to bribe college officials to get their kids into schools. We saw a couple months ago in the news. And we're not letting kids be kids. We're stealing their youthful curiosity and telling them to get on this conveyor belt and show a determined focus at age 3, all the way through age 18, get great grades, great SAT scores, go to an elite school, and your life will be fine. But it's not fine. The woman who teaches freshman psychology at Stanford, Carol Dweck, said the kids she sees coming into Stanford today, who are the winners on this conveyor belt, are what she called exhausted and brittle, and they don't want to mar their perfect records. That doesn't sound like somebody you'd want to employ.
We had a salesperson here, one of the best salespeople we ever had at this radio station, and he applied for the job when he was over 50. And I remember the boss saying to him, no, we're looking for younger faces than you. And he says, well, you don't have to believe me. Just let me do this. You don't have to pay me anything. I promise you I'll bring you results. And you know what? Long story short, he did. He's no longer with us, but I mean, he's alive, but he's no longer with the station. But he did. He proved himself. And I think maybe one of the things your book is pointing out is that we shouldn't dismiss people just because they've got a few years under them belt. In fact, we should remember how good they could be.
Well, we don't get stupid. We may get slightly slower, just like a pitcher in his 30s doesn't have quite the fastball that they had in their 20s. And I'm talking about logic puzzle problems, and you don't see that many great software programmers once you get into the 30s and 40s and 50s. But everything else, I mean, our ability to manage projects, lead people, communicate, inspire, all of those things don't even begin to blossom until our 30s, 40s, and 50s for the vast majority of people. And there are cognitive reasons why that happens. So, we keep showing that we have these new gifts that we gain, and the speed of our fastball doesn't deteriorate anything like some people think.
Well, you have examples of people in your book that are late bloomers, and you yourself are a late bloomer, so it is sort of a memoir.
Yeah. I shared my own embarrassing story when at age 25 I could hold a job no more responsible than dishwasher, security guard, and temp typist. In fact, at age 25 when I was a security guard, I had a nighttime shift at a trucking yard, and I was making my rounds. I heard a dog barking. I swung my flashlight around, and I saw in the yard next door through the fence was a Rottweiler, and it occurred to me that my professional colleague at age 25 was a dog.
Oh my gosh. So you needed to head in a different direction then.
Yeah, well, about a year later when I was a temp typist, I got an opportunity to try out as a technical writer at a research institute, and it was the first job I took seriously and embraced as an adult, and it opened up my brain working with scientists and engineers. And then things began to move forward pretty quickly. But I don't think I think if you would have given me that opportunity to be a technical writer at 23, I would have blown it. I know I would have blown it.
Oh my gosh, you're getting really good reviews. I'm torn. I'm not sure, and we don't have enough time to really explore this question. But is the book for the late bloomer, or for the person, or for society as a whole?
I would say primarily the people who are responding most enthusiastically are parents in their 30s, 40s, and 50s who have kids, teens, and young adults, and they want to do the right thing for their kid, but they are smart enough to know that if their kid is not responding to this early blooming pressure, that Plan B shouldn't be to double down and drive the kid towards depression and even suicidal thoughts, which is happening all too much in the country. So my job is to start a national conversation to give parents permission to think creatively about raising their kids in unconventional ways.
Now, that's a great reason to read this book. Okay, it's called Late Bloomers. I found it on Amazon. Rich Karlgaard, could you tell us a website we might go to?
Yeah, just richkarlgaard.com. Karlgaard is spelled Karlgaard. I'd love to hear inspiring late bloomer stories, and I'd love to hear about parental challenges.
Excellent. Rich, thank you for doing this, and good luck with everything.
Yeah, thanks so much.
You're welcome. We'll be right back. Here is your one-minute news brief. Florida's governor is ordering election officials review the cybersecurity of the state's election systems. The request comes more than a week after he